to the Northwest Cavalryman Show, the podcast where your host, Rick Skolrud, discusses politics and news from Canada, the United States, and around the world from a conservative perspective. Warning: professionally offended people and liberal crybabies may be triggered. Viewer discretion is advised. While we put the finishing touches on this podcast, you are invited to visit the show notes. There are links to all of Rick's social media, including his website where you can sign up to take the Canadian Firearms Safety Course, which is a prerequisite for obtaining your Canadian Firearms License, also known as a PAL. Rick teaches these courses in Maple Bay just east of Duncan on Vancouver Island, British Columbia. Now here's your host, Rick Skolrud.
Hey y'all, how you doing today? Thanks for tuning in. So I've been rushing just to get this done and up in time because, time just seems to get away from me on Thursday evenings while I'm about to start my live stream here. So hello Harley, thanks for joining in from Redcliffe. So hey, if you're there, just check in. Let me know where you're tuning in from, and hopefully we'll have a good time here. Also, as per usual, I just want to do a basic sound check just to make sure everything is going well. Okay, so let's go here. Brad, welcome. Brad from Surrey. Know Surrey quite well. Goko, sorry. Hello, from Northern Ontario. Nicole, hello from Montreal, Nicole, and Jennifer from Vancouver Island, in my neighborhood. And Tracy, I hear Tracy, you're from Vancouver Island as well, aren't you? Up in Nanaimo. So, and hello, Roy from Nova Scotia, Dartmouth. I'm not going to use my Nova Scotia accent. I've been on the West Coast too long. I don't have one anymore. Just to get started, as people are tuning in, I just wanted to make a quick explanation of a few things that you might see on some of my videos, or at least one thing. Sometimes on my video, you see my logo in the upper left-hand corner, and below that, you will see a timestamp. And what that is an editing tool that I use. Basically, it's something that I created to make editing easier for me. So when I'm looking at ParlVu, which is the parliamentary video website, so either committee or House of Commons proceedings, such as anything really in the House of Commons. If I've overlaid that and I've put the time up in that section of my video so that I can edit it easier, and I've just left it on there because it's just easier just to leave it on there. I know I've had one person ask about that, or say, hey, actually I think it was in one of my Lauren Southern videos where they commented, oh, what happened here? It jumped ahead 30 seconds. And I'm like, yeah, that was me. I'm cutting out all the stuff that's really not important. And obviously I have to do that for a reason, because videos would be way, way too long. So, but I always link, or at least I try to always link, my source material in the show notes, or the otherwise known as the description of the video. So if you think you've missed anything, just go and check out the source material. It's a lot longer, obviously, and sometimes more boring. So there you go. So that's what that is. So I'm going to talk about a bunch of stuff tonight. I'm not sure how much material I really have, because sometimes I think I have a lot of material and I get through it fairly quickly, and other times I don't think I have a lot of material and it takes up the whole hour. And I like to, call it quits about an hour into it, because I don't want to, bore too many people for too long. And boring some people for a little length of time is just fine. Well, the first thing I want to go to before I get into my main topic today is I want to get into something that happened south of the border yesterday. At least I believe it was yesterday. And then we'll talk about that for a little bit, because it does relate to a lot of things that are happening in Canada. And I'm going to make that connection when we come back from watching this video.
Fox News Digital has exclusively learned that nearly a dozen of President-elect Donald Trump's cabinet nominees and other appointees tapped for the incoming administration were targeted with, quote, violent, un-American threats to their lives and those who live with them. These threats prompted a swift law enforcement response.
Emily, this is a potential national security problem, so we have reached out to the National Security Council at the White House to find out what they are tracking. We will bring you their answer once we have one. We have also been in touch with some officials down with the transition team at Mar-a-Lago. They are not willing to go any further at this time than this statement. We made a graphic so you can follow along. Last night and this morning, several of President Trump's cabinet nominees and administration appointees were targeted in violent, un-American threats to their lives and those who live with them. These attacks ranged from bomb threats to swatting. In response, law enforcement and other authorities acted quickly to ensure the safety of those who were targeted. President Trump and the entire transition team are grateful for their swift action.
And I'm just thinking about, as you know, President Trump-elect has really amassed this Avenger squad. We know in a moment it's going to be mess around and find out. But in the interim, I am frightened and want to make sure that our future Avengers are protected now.
Yeah, I think we need to talk about why this is happening. This is all due to the angry vitriol that came from the Democratic Party during the presidential election. They have painted the Republicans with such an evil stroke to convince a lot of people who are ignorant, they're uninformed and uneducated, that the Republican Party is the devil, and that if you are around a Republican, they hate you. They hate anyone who's of a minority status. They hate women. They don't want women to have rights. They want to deport every single illegal immigrant in this country. Not true. They're focusing on criminals. So they've been fed so much BS, and that is why this is happening. And the Democratic Party is 100% responsible for these threats. They need to come out and actually speak up. I'd like to hear from Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris loved to talk about the hate against the Palestinians during the war, right? Why doesn't she come out and say, look, anyone out there who's trying to target a Republican, especially someone who is running for office, it is absolutely unacceptable. I guarantee you we will not hear a word from the vice president or the president on this while he's vacationing in Nantucket.
Yeah, such a great point.
So let's just maybe go through the list just a little bit, see who's joined in. I think, Jennifer from Vancouver Island. Hello. Tracy, of course. Roy, I think I got most of these. Is that T.I. Lewis or T.L. Lewis from Northern Quebec? Sunshine, hello, how you doing? Brewski from Alberta. Marvin, how you doing? From High River. I know High River a little bit. My brother actually lives down there. I'm not sure if he actually lives in High River or in Okotoks, but I used to be quite the fan of Big Rock Brewery traditional ale. Let me know. Hey, is that still going? We don't get it out here. We used to. I can't find it. So I'm not a big drinker or a big ale beer drinker, anyways. But I did like that. Hello, Nicole. Liz. Hi, Liz. And Yentle's Bagels from Cape Breton. Cool. There are 3 opportunities for a confidence motion this week. That's interesting, Brad. Singh will fold like a house of cards. I think he's going to hold up the government. I don't know. Hello, Cody and Carol and Lisa. Wally from corrupt BC. Wally, yeah, we're living in corrupt BC. We're living in socialist BC, the left coast for sure. EMBW from Maitland, Ontario. How you doing, Aaron? Sorry, Aaron. And Norm from Victoria. How you doing, Norm? Just down the road from me. Bobcat from BC. And Dirk. First time live. I know about the Trudeau family. Yes, Trudeau family. So we're going to get to the Trudeau family. So I just want to comment on the video that I just showed about the Trump threats, and going to tie it into why I think it ties into a lot of things that are happening in Canada. And it's basically because of the left. And we saw on the last section of Outnumbered there, where the psychologist was talking about, I think it was a psychologist, I'm not sure, but anyway, she was talking about how it's all on the left, all on the Democrats. And we get that up here a lot as well. And I'm thinking that we're going to have a bit of an issue when ParlVu gets in, because traditionally we've been 15 to 20 years behind all of the troubles that have been going on in the U.S. Now we're ahead of it. We're ahead of the game, actually, which is not a good thing, because recently in Parliament, actually today in Parliament, they started bringing up the crime stats, and we're about 14 to 15% more violent in Canada, experiencing more violent crime in Canada than they do in the United States. But I know a lot of people didn't realize this, but that's been going on for a long, long time. When I got back from Japan, in 2005, and before we moved into our house, we had a townhouse for a short period of time in Cloverdale. We were staying at my parents' place in Ladner. My mother was still alive at the time, and I was reading the newspaper, and I read this article, and then I looked it up, and in every single category of crime, Canada was actually higher. Now, it wasn't official stats, so today the official stats have caught up. But what these were it was done by an institution, a worldwide institution that does victim surveys. And victim surveys, in my opinion, are sometimes a lot more accurate, because a lot of people don't report crime. So I think you have to keep that in mind. So now the official records, or the official numbers, so the reported numbers are out, and they've caught up with the unofficial or the victim survey crimes. So we are about 14 years behind the United States, or at least that's what we used to believe. But are we really? I think that it's a lot of, well, thanks, Tracy. I think a lot of it is perception more than anything. And that's where we get into my second topic of the night, is perception. We used to perceive Canada as being a very safe country, and we didn't know a lot of things that were happening. But back in the 70s, there was always these warnings that your parents would give you. You know what I mean? You always knew you had to be careful. Don't get into a strange vehicle, and whatnot. We were a little bit freer back then. We didn't have all of the restrictions that a lot of the kids have on them today. As a matter of fact, my kids had a lot of restrictions on them, and I was very, very worried about them. But a part of that was all of my knowledge being in the law enforcement kind of realm. So I was always quite worried about that. But back in the day, back in the 70s, it was almost like open your doors and hopefully your kids come back at night. And that's where I grew up. And now we start hearing these horrific things. I think even 10, 20 years ago, if you'd heard from this lady, or and there was another lady who was talking, or had done another video that was linked. Actually, after I posted this video, I saw another video on the same topic from a guy named Portuguese Pie, I think his name is. I'm not overly familiar with this stuff. I've seen a few of his videos, and he did a similar video to mine, only he had additional material, and he had material from another lady who was speaking. And I got to say, that other lady struck me as being a little off. However, I'm not saying that she's lying or anything. It's just she could have been traumatized to the point where that's my perception because of the trauma that she received, because these things are very traumatic for a kid. And what is so horrific about these things is that you're stealing a person's innocence. So I'm going to play a little clip from an earlier video that I did, a long form video, and some outtakes that I took from the PBD PBD podcast that I did a video on. So take a look at this, and then we'll talk about it a little bit more.
You gave a couple of the names to me earlier. And what was the interaction with you?
Scary.
Was his wife also involved, or just him?
I didn't see his wife, or I don't know. I didn't see anybody else but him.
But you vividly remember him. Justin Trudeau's father, right? That's
Yes.
who you're talking about.
Yes.
I mean, you've never mentioned his name before, right? No. Trudeau. What was that relationship like, or the experience like? Was it a one-day thing? Was it a repetitive that happened?
All right, I'll tell you something. David Rockefeller had me trained as a spy. So I was a sex slave, of course, and I was an elite sex slave now. And I was trained as a spy through the mind control training. And so that week, I was sleeping with men, and then I would go report on their weaknesses or their sexual preferences to David Rockefeller.
Why did he need that information? Is that how to blackmail and use it later on in negotiation?
For example. Or if he knows what they want, then he can give it to them sexually. About Trudeau, I said that I could never please him as long as I was alive. That's how scary that was.
You could never please him?
If I was alive.
So Pierre, in my mind, was always a creep. And I was a kid at the time. So, but watching him, he was always super creepy. And I always, I mean, I didn't know why he was so popular at the time. And just the way he would prance around. And when I say prance, I actually mean he would prance around, dancing and do pirouettes and stuff like that on Parliament Hill. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it was creepy, just the way he behaved. So I was always a little bit leery of Pierre. And now we hear things like this. And you would think, first off, that, okay, it just can't be real. But the more we learn and the more we find out about these things, the more we realize that a lot of really horrific things have happened in the past. And we normally only hear about it when a body turns up and then the news grabs onto it. And then 48 hours later, most of the time, if it's not in our own backyard, we forget about it. It just goes on into history. But things like this, it's important, I think, to listen to people who've been the victims of these things. And I've known a lot of people who've been the victims of some fairly horrendous crimes when they were quite young. So when you listen to a lady like this, if you've got a background where you've had to kind of discern whether or not somebody is telling the truth or not, you can tell that she is telling the truth. There's a few telltale signs of people telling the truth. I'm not going to talk too much about that because it could actually be revealing some trade secrets that I probably shouldn't. But even though I'm not in the business anymore, I still feel a bit of an obligation to not to reveal too many trade secrets. But I can tell you from watching her that she displayed signs of truth. Okay, she displayed signs of truth, and I believe her. Now, the really scary thing was, I cut it out on this video because I didn't want it to be demonetized. But what her feeling of why Pierre would not have been satisfied while she was alive. And go back and watch my other video. It has been, it's, I think, demonetized. I've asked for a review of that, but it was kind of my own fault. I not really my fault. I made an honest appraisal of the content, which I always do, and as a result, it was limited in what it could earn, which is fine. I'm not in this for the money. It's nice. I don't make enough money to be in this for the money. So I think though that you need to. I think it's actually really important, more so to go to the original broadcast of PBD, even though it's not mine. Obviously, it's something that he does a very good job, and he gets into it. And it's not just about Pierre. It's about the whole everything that happened to her and all the horrendous things, and also that whole network of degenerates is I'll put it on this podcast so I don't get demonetized, because you really have to watch what you say. So so how does that relate to what's going on now, and why should we still be talking about it? Well, we still believe that these degenerates are out there and they're still causing problems. That's for one, and they need to be dismantled, and more light needs to be shone on these organizations. But also, there are probably people who are still alive who are working, for or around Pierre at the time, Pierre Trudeau. And particularly, I would like to see an investigation, an inquiry, and have everybody who was possibly on his protection detail called in to testify under oath to what was happening. And by under oath, I mean whether or not they have to give a statement under oath. We call those KGB statements. I know that sounds a little bit odd, but that's just the word for it in Canada. Basically, it's a sworn statement under, basically threat of perjury if you lie or public mischief, where in the States they would call that basically a deposition. We still call them depositions, I think, in the civil realm in Canada, but basically it's a sworn statement. And the reason why I think it's very important for us to bring those people in is because what did they know? Whether it was this lady or the other lady, and the name was mentioned by somebody in the chat, what did they know? And were they complicit? How far up the chain of command did this go? I remember once I asked a lady that I worked with, a very nice lady. She was an inspector way back when I was a corporal. And I asked her, said, what would you do if you find your protectee doing something of a criminal nature? Obviously, if it's a serious criminal nature, I said at the time, then you would intervene and do something. But if it's something minor, like because at the time cannabis was still illegal, what would you do? And she didn't really give me a fulsome answer, or an answer that I was really happy with. But I did respect her and whatnot. But now I'm questioning, well, what would they do even if they found their protectee doing something serious? Because of this, what would they have done, and how much would they look the other way or even be complicit with? And that is, to me, very, very scary, because if you can't trust the people that you trust to protect you, who can you trust? And of course, that goes even deeper. It goes into this lady and what happened to her, and really not being able even to trust her own parents. And all this talk is now coming out about all this MK Ultra mind control stuff that the CIA was into, and how that kind of seeped into Canada. And you really got to think, like, what was going through these people's minds at the time, and were they really that despicable and taking that much advantage of people? And obviously, with all of the reports coming out, we believe that today we believe that was the case. So that is something that I think we really have to start taking seriously, and how much of that is still going on? Is any of that going on? So you have that aspect of it, but then you have what this lady went through, and I think that is very it's horrendous. It makes me mad. It seriously makes me mad to think that things like that could have happened, and that people of that who we've put up on that pedestal, who shouldn't be on that pedestal, but who we've put on that pedestal, how they could be involved. So, having covered that, let's go back to really the whole creepiness of this Trudeau family. This Trudeau family is old money, and it goes back, to way prior to the Civil War in the United States. And the fact is that many of them were, or at least one was a general in the Civil War for the Confederates. Okay, and the Confederates, of course, were Democrats. So, we've got this twisted idea today of how Democrats and liberals are all about, peace, harmony, joy, all the rest of this kind of stuff. But it's really not the case. It's all about control with them, big government and control. And they always blame conservatives and Republicans about being, racist and all these other stupid claims. But when you think about it, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, because when you're on the right side of the political spectrum, you're about less government. You're about more freedoms. You're about respecting people's freedoms and respecting people's independence. So it would make more sense that there would be less bigotry and less racism on that side. Truth is, racism is not a political thing. It goes on both sides of the spectrum. However, Marx and and socialists wrote about how they would use this type of division in society to gain control. So when I hear Democrats talking about this crap and blaming Republicans, and when I hear liberals blaming conservatives for this, I know that it's all BS, and it just carries on and on and on. So these creeps, these Trudeaus, are very old money, and I have a real problem with. I've always had a problem with Justin, but when you look at what he did this week, last week, a week ago, I guess tomorrow, it'd be a week ago tomorrow, how he just partied with young girls and handed out friendship bracelets while Montreal was burning. And the big question there was, well, when did he learn about this? You might argue, well, he was at the concert to be a chaperone for his daughters. And I've gone to a concert with my daughters. Of course, it wasn't Taylor Swift. It was Carrie Underwood. But we sat in the stands and we went to the non-drinking section, which, a long story, but I wasn't handing out bracelets to young kids, and I wasn't, taking selfies with young kids and being all creepy on the young kids and making it all about me. And that's what Trudeau was doing there. He was making it all about himself. So I have a real problem with him. And for many, many reasons, I have a problem with him. I just think he's a super, super creepy guy, but he's also super, super narcissistic. As a matter of fact, I'm going to play a little clip here and then we'll talk about just how narcissistic he is.
Speaker, while the leader of the opposition focuses on himself and on me.
So, I think the audio cut out there at the end, but he said that Pierre was thinking about himself and him, so talking about him as the prime minister. Well, come on, man. He's just such a narcissist. He thinks everything is about him. And he was happy. He was happy that Pierre was focusing on him and saying nasty things about him because, hey, he's getting the attention. So I really think that it is surprising how much of a narcissist we have elected to our parliament. You shouldn't want to be, in it for yourself like that. And I get it that there's probably so many narcissists and so many people who are in it for themselves, but it is so obvious with him, so obvious. And he's just so creepy with what he does with the young girls and how he acts like a young girl. For crying out loud, he acts like a schoolgirl, all giddy about, Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift is, never really been into her. I thought that some of her earlier stuff was okay. It was country. But you got tired of it pretty quick because it was all about girly stuff. And he's into that. Like, how can a grown man of 52 years old be into girly music like that? It just, okay, I shouldn't judge on that particular point. Maybe there are people who are like that, but to me, it just seems super creepy. Some people have mentioned that maybe he's not even allowed to be around his daughters alone, and that's why his ex-wife was there. I don't know. As far as paying for the tickets, a lot of people have asked or mentioned, well, are we paying for the tickets? No, he would have had to pay for those tickets himself, but I've been meaning to check with some people who have been on Prime Minister protection duty. Were his security guards comped tickets to get in there, or did the Canadian government have to pay for their entry? That would be something that is very interesting to find out, because he goes to these places and it costs us a ton of money. He may have to pay for his own entry, but he's not the only one entering, and he's not the only one there. So I really have a problem with that. And Nicole here has just mentioned that he went to the movie Barbie with his son, and that is super creepy as well. I just think he's a creep. That's just, that is my interpretation of it. The next thing I kind of want to talk about is what's happening in the House this weekend. By the House, obviously, I mean the House of Commons. So they had a vote today. I'm pretty sure it lost, or it passed, which means that, and it was a confidence motion apparently. I couldn't watch ParlVu or the House of Commons all day today. I had so many other things to do, and especially on a day where I'm setting up for a live stream, there's just a lot of stuff to work at and get done. So I tuned in just before question period, and they were still on debate, or they were just taking a vote, sort of on that. I think it was a vote on whether or not they should, stop the, the stall of Parliament or whatever in order to take it. I think it was on a debate whether it was to be put to a vote. I'm not really sure about that, because during question period, which was late today, they did talk about how they were voting on it later. So obviously I didn't go back and watch that. It's a long, I printed out the order paper of the day, or the order of business, but it doesn't get into that much detail. You can't really pin down a particular time frame of when to watch. So on that, it's not something that I would really be able to pin down. So I don't know for sure, but I'm pretty positive that what passed, or what was put forward, passed. But it was modified. It was only the GST portion of it, and it was not the rebate portion of it. They took that out because of the NDP. The NDP wanted to flex their muscles and wanted to say, yeah, we'll vote for you, but you have to take this out and rejig this, instead of being responsible members of Parliament and just voting against it so we can go to an election and really put money back into everybody's pockets. And what's the point of a rebate, and what's the point of a tax holiday when we can get tax off permanently and not have to pay money out in the first place? It's our money to begin with. Why do we need to pay it out just to get it back? So it's such a pittance today. I mean, like 20, 40 years ago, $250, that was something. That was like, that could pay your rent 40 years ago in some towns in Canada. Whereas today, what is it? It's like a trip to the grocery store for one person is $250. So it's a joke. But anyways, they took that off. They dropped that part, and now they're giving us the GST holiday, which is, when you think about it, it sounds good on paper, but with the amount of money you're actually going to be saving, I would absolutely prefer to have an election. Honestly, I would absolutely prefer to have an election. So there was a few interactions in Parliament today that I thought was quite hilarious. So let's go through a few of them. You know what? I'm just going to start playing them. So and then we can talk about
face an unprecedented threat from President Trump's potential tariffs. And what is the state of things here in Canada? Our economy is weakened. Our borders are weakened. Our military is weakened. And most of all, our Prime Minister is weakened. Why can't we have a carbon tax election so Canadians can choose a leader with the brains and backbone to protect our economy and put Canada first?
brains and backbone. Well, obviously Trudeau has neither, and we've known that for forever. And obviously the rest of his cabinet has no brains and backbone, and I think the rest of his caucus doesn't have any brains and backbone. And of course that caused a bit of a stir, as it would. And it appears that, Trudeau was kind of being a bit of a freak. Let's take a look at this.
Mr. Speaker, he's lost control of our borders. He's lost control of immigration. He's lost control of spending. And with that erratic performance, we now see that he's lost control of himself. No wonder foreign leaders believe they can walk all over him. They see him as a weak, incompetent leader who does not even have the support of his own party. Yes. Why won't he put the country first for a change, allow a carbon tax election so Canadians can have a prime minister who will protect this country?
Yeah, so he's lost control. He's pretty sure that was the one I played, but he has lost control. He totally freaks out. Yeah, there's so many people actually on the Liberal bench who, when they get worked up and they start just screaming. Champagne is like that, and I just can't stand him. But also that Jonathan Wilkinson, he starts off fairly calm, and then by the end he's just screaming. It's like they're all going to have heart attacks or something. They should have they probably do have a defibrillator in there, but they absolutely should. But then, of course, Pierre noted that they do have a bit of mass hallucination.
Just to prove how weak and out of control he's become, he just engaged in a mass hallucination, listing off a bunch of programs that actually don't even exist outside of his own head. But if he's not prepared to stand up for the country when it comes to trade, then why don't we have a real election about taxes? He can run on his tiny 2-month tax trick, and I'll run on my common sense plan to axe the tax and axe the sales tax on new homes. How about a carbon tax election now?
Now, Mark Miller, he responded to a lot of these things, and he's not the brightest guy, I don't think. I used to think that, he was just a boring guy that was probably not so bad. His personality kind of sucked, but he didn't seem like he was had a vicious bone to him. But it's starting to come out. He's starting to act quite the well. Let's just take a look at this, and then we'll talk about it.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
This week, Prime Minister has lost control. He's lost control of immigration, lost control of our borders. And now we're facing massive threats to our economy. Right now, there are as many as 500,000 people here illegally. There are 700,000 students who came here with the implicit promise they'd be able to stay forever. And now they're being told they have to leave with the temptation that they might head south for the much stronger economy than we have here, which would provoke a massive retaliatory tariff. So what's the plan to reverse all the damage the Prime Minister's done?
The Honourable Minister for Immigration, Citizenship and Refugees.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Hundreds of thousands of people come to this country every year and then leave. They're called tourists. Hundreds of thousands of people come here as temporary residents and then they leave. Some become permanent residents. There is a plan to achieve that. They will migrate into permanent residency, but not all can stay here. And when they refuse to do so, they will be removed. But you can't make this up, Mr. Speaker. What the member opposite, the Leader of the Opposition, is doing with the member of Edmonton Millwoods is going around to these people, pandering to them, promising them to have visas and promising not to deport them. That is highly irresponsible and it's incompetent.
If you notice there, hopefully I played the right one. I can't actually listen to these while I'm playing them on my live stream, or else you will get an echo and a playback. So I'm watching them, and hopefully I haven't got the sequence messed up. And maybe there's a way I can do it, but I found that when I'm listening to them, I can't actually. You get a bit of an echo. So. But on this one, if you notice, he was saying that Pierre Poilievre was pandering to these illegal aliens and illegal immigrants. Well, if you recall a couple of weeks back, or maybe it was a month ago now, when somebody said that Pierre Poilievre said that Mélanie Joly was pandering. That he was called out on that and told to withdraw, and then he was kicked out of the House. Now, of course, he was saying that about terrorists, so a little bit different, but still, it's the accusation is essentially the same. But Mark Miller didn't get called out on that, and he should have been. I believe he should have been. But then he goes and says this.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, that member hallucinates almost as badly as his weak leader, who refuses to stand and answer for his own border failures. Let's look at his record. He opened Roxham Road. He kept it open for a year longer than the Americans required. He put out a tweet saying, "Welcome to Canada," inviting people to come here illegally. According to that minister's department, there are 500,000 people here illegally, all of whom could be tempted to go south of the border, provoking a massive retaliatory response. So once again, what's the plan to fix what he broke?
The Honourable Minister for Immigration, Citizenship and Refugees.
Speaker, we'll tweet out the video of him pandering to people, entertaining false hope, promising visas to everyone, promising they won't get deported. That's highly incompetent. Worse than that, Mr. Speaker, is he's refusing to get his security clearance. That is irresponsible for any purported leader of this country, any responsible person in politics. He needs to grow a pair, get the briefing.
It's funny how I don't think they they should actually take a class in trash talk, I think, because these guys are just so terrible at it. But it kind of just shows how much of a jerk this guy is as well, because not only do they not know how to trash talk, but they do it in such a way that they think they're funny. I don't know. The conservatives, at least, are funny. You ever notice that, though, about both Republicans and Republicans and conservatives, when they come up with something like that to say, they actually have some humor and some intelligence behind it, but the Liberals don't seem to be able to muster any intelligence or any humor. So, but when he was called to task on it, this is what happened.
There is a large flexibility that Speaker gives, of course, to the language that's used in here. But I think that might be beyond the border. I'm going to ask the Honourable Minister if he could just withdraw those words.
Mr. Speaker, I withdraw those words. On a day like this, I would say he's all flannel and no axe.
Yeah.
All flannel, no axe? Seriously? He really has to work on his trash talk. And he thinks he's such, he's got that smile like he's so impressed with himself. I'm not impressed with him at all. Prior to just the last few weeks, I just thought that he was a guy with no personality, that happened to be a friend of Trudeau's. Now I just think that he's got this pent up aggression inside, and he's trying to let it out, but he's just not very good at it. So anyway, another thing that struck me about that clip was how Fergus was so wishy-washy on giving, criticism to that side. He's wishy-washy whenever he gives criticism, but he's just so wishy-washy. Oh, I think that maybe you crossed the line. Whatever. Call him out, make him apologize, and I would have said, you know what? Apologize for that too. I don't know what that means. All flannel, no axe. That is just the lamest trash talk I've ever heard. But that's a Liberal for you. They can't do anything right. They can't even they can't even trash talk well, in my opinion. So take that for what it's worth. Yeah. So basically, there's been a lot going on. There's been so much going on lately. It's hard to keep up. And then when I start to put down an episode or whether it's a long form video or an episode here, I just don't know. Geez, what should I focus on? What should I bring up? Because there is so much going on. Some of it is pretty lame, like all flannel, no axe. Come on, whatever. But then you do have some other stuff there, and I guess I shouldn't be so entertained with all this because it is serious business, Parliament. But I mean, what else can you do? You got to laugh at it because if you don't laugh at it, you're just going to drive yourself crazy. So anyway, I'm just kind of looking at the comments briefly as I'm going through this. So, yeah, there's just a lot going on out there, and it's hard to keep up sometimes. I'm not even sure I'm going to bother watching Question Period tomorrow. I've got so much to do around the house that I've just let go because there's just so many things to pay attention to, which is going on. And Fridays, normally you don't get too much happening on Fridays. They all take off, and it's the second string or the third string of MPs that are given permission to speak. So I'm probably not even going to bother with that, although I will keep one eye on things that is happening in case I decide that it's worthwhile doing a video on. So let's just, I'm just going to bring over the chat to this side and go back because looks like you guys have been pretty active. And all right. Okay. You got from North Wet BC. welcome. Okay, see what's been going on here. Two cons get two, and Jugmutt will blow his. Oh yeah, okay. So this is talking about the opposition days. So the opposition days, I heard Gould talk about that. So what are they going to use it for? If it's not the really the opposition day that counts in the next little while is going to be the Bloc opposition day. If the Bloc gets one, then they could convince the NDP to vote with them. Now they're voting on some things that I think the OAS is the only thing that they would get any traction on. I'm not sure they'll get traction on supply management, but they might. You never know. But if they call a confidence motion on OAS, they might be able to shame the NDP into voting with them. But I don't know when the next Bloc opposition day is. So there you have it. Rocking the new haircut. Thank you very much. Hello, Neil. Check it. So, Canada from Fort McMurray, formerly from Fort St. John. Well, welcome to the channel and welcome tonight. Okay. Check out. Kathy O'Brien is the lady, the other video. Thanks, Lynn, for that. I started watching it, but it is another 2 hours, and I didn't think it would add anything to the story. Also, with all the other things going on, I did note though that she seems to be suffering from some severe PTSD as a result. So it's sad, really, when you get down to it. And I think what happened to her and what happened to the other lady were while Pierre was PM. So he should have had Prime Minister protection duty. And one of the things that I really would like to see is for an inquiry and for all of his PMPD personnel to be interviewed under oath and see what they knew, what they saw, and what they did. But, I don't know that would really happen. He was blackmailed and started. I don't know. Who was blackmailed? Was it the young Trudeau? I've heard, actually, you know what? I want to go back and I want to see that video where Margaret and Justin were talking about the death of Michelle. Apparently, the reactions were very strange. Now, I didn't see that interview. I'm going to try and look it up because, that could be quite telling in and of itself. Okay, so Michael, look up this Michael guy. I might just do that. Apple doesn't fall far from the tree. The cracker doesn't fall far from the box. All that kind of fun stuff. Like Justin, there's some really weird stuff going on with him. And the fact that he's gotten away with that groping incident and he calls himself a feminist and he does all these weird things, it's just, I just don't know how people still vote for him. There's actually rumors that he may not even get elected in his own riding next time. And he might just pull something that Pierre did. Pierre stood on as the official opposition after he was kicked out the first time, and then he came back. He might just try that. I hope he doesn't. But then again, if he stays on as the leader of the official opposition, it's not likely they'll get back into power, which would be a good thing, in my view, because I just can't see how anybody could get want to vote for him again, but I don't see how anybody could vote for Liberal again, but that's just me. Trudeau Foundation chair was ex-director of the nefarious things happening at McGill, the MK Ultra program. That is very interesting, Lynn. Okay, just when, yeah. I risk my life speaking about this. I don't know about that, actually. Maybe, but all I'll say to that is better get me with your first shot, because you ain't getting a second one. But that's just, it's just the way it is. Sock Boy has dirt on everyone. He may. That's how they play, though. I mean, like, they play dirty. And, we think that they're all honorable. Like, when are we going to take the name Right Honorable away from Pierre Elliott Trudeau? Because clearly he was never honorable. So I think that there should be maybe I'll start a petition on that, but that won't go anywhere. Unfortunately. Justin was the only man in the audience at the Taylor Swift concert, other than his security, of course. Yeah, he was so creepy there. Okay. Some of these things I can't repeat. Yeah, he made me sick the way he was acting, Fern, at the concert as well. Thanks for that, Fern. Like a demented teenage girl. He is a demented teenage girl, Gun Cotton. I think. Hello, Cat in the Hat. Have you noticed lately, and I mentioned this before, but Chrystia Freeland is never in the house when Trudeau is in the house, and obviously Trudeau's not in the house when she's in the house. Are they on the outs, or is there like dissension within the ranks there? They don't seem to attend the house, and I think it's been about a month since I've seen them together in the house, or maybe even longer. But I noticed that I think last week, and it hasn't changed this week. Dirk says Justin likes males rather than females. Well, got that from his dad. Just saying. Or I should say he got that from the man who paid the nanny to raise him. And just leave it at that. The vote on GST passed 177 to 148. Yeah. When was that vote, Kumuri? Was that just before statements, or was that afterwards? Because I just couldn't follow everything that was on there. I had too much to do. Jag caved again. Yeah, he'll cave every time, at least until he gets his pension secured. Tyler is the best person to lead, especially crime, drugs, and poverty. Okay. I'll have to look up. You know what? I'm not familiar with Tyler True. Is this a joke, or I'll have to look him up. Maybe I'll do that right after the podcast. Is he PPC or something, or PPL or whatever? I don't know. You know what? Gas was 24 cents or a quarter a liter back in the 70s as well. So I mean, more than a quarter a gallon, obviously. So that would have been, $1 a gallon. I remember those days, and it wasn't the 70s. It was actually the 90s. Actually, into the 2000s, there was a time where it was 74 cents. Yeah. Champagne is tone deaf. He's got to be with his squeak. I can't stand listening to that guy. He just threatens my eardrums every time he opens his mouth. Trudeau gets mad at Pierre Poilievre for telling the truth. His face looks like he's going to explode. We can only hope. Yeah, so this digital currency and digital ID, we should fight that tooth and nail, because yeah, we're just being sucked into a black hole there. Mark Miller is the bully from the movie A Christmas Story. He certainly looks like it. I think he's got, I used to just think he had no personality. Now I think he's got a personality disorder, or maybe a no personality disorder. My stupid dad jokes, I know. One trick ponies do the same old tricks. I saw that where Nose Candy, Melanie Jolie said that. So where was that? What did she say? Melanie Jolie. The only, I hate to say it, but Melanie Jolie is one of those people where you could honestly say that she probably got the job on her looks alone, because there was nothing up there. Maybe there is. Maybe she's intelligent, but she just doesn't try because of, everything that's been given to her. But, she is, there's just nothing upstairs. Yeah. So, SpongeBob Fergus. SpongeBob Fergus. Let's see, what else? I think I accidentally skipped to the bottom of it, but housing units must be built in all of Canada provinces in order to serve the people. Train infrastructure must be built for all cities, provinces, and villages. This is the future industry and agriculture. What I find goofy is, the more the government gets involved in all these things, the worse things happen. I used back in the day when I was, there was talk about legalizing prostitution. Prostitution's always been legal in Canada, but soliciting for the purpose was against the law. But back in the day, there was always talk, well, how would you control prostitution? Well, that's easy. Just control it by the government. Basically, have government-controlled prostitution or government-run prostitution, because the government can't run anything. They can't run the oldest industry or the oldest business, the oldest profession in the world, because they can't run anything. So, but what's worse is once they fail, they just start charging us for it. And that's what they're doing all over the place. So I think, I don't know, those are my opinions for this evening. And I think I'll just leave it there. We're over an hour. I didn't think that we'd actually go this long tonight, because I didn't think I had that much, but it's been great. And thanks for tuning in, everyone. And hopefully, I made a little bit of sense here, and hopefully we talked about some things that mattered, because I really do think that the evil in the world has to be called out. I've got so many ideas about how to fix it, whether or not they would work. But I'm just a retiree. I'm a 60-year-old broken down Mountie with an imitation leg. So it's not like I could probably do too much about it. So you know what? Let's call it an evening. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. I hope everyone has a great rest of your week, and we will see you next week. And if you don't tune back in before Christmas, I hope you have a good Christmas. I hope you have a great Thanksgiving. This is U.S. Thanksgiving. So even though we've had our Thanksgiving up here a month ago, I hope everybody, that celebrates a second Thanksgiving and has a great Black Friday. I know I have to order some Christmas presents starting tomorrow because it's going to be cheaper than waiting for the GST to come off of it. Anyway, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.
You've been watching the Northwest Cavalryman Show. Thank you for tuning in this evening. I hope you've enjoyed the content. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and share with your friends and on social media. May God bless you. And if you're a liberal crybaby, bless your heart. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you next Thursday.